What's up, everyone? It's your boy Ailurus, and we're back at it again on r/AmITheA, and I have 5 crazy stories to share with you today, so let's just jump into it. Our first story comes from user NoWriting9686. I, 17 female, still live at home. My sister, 28, is married and has 2 kids, 5 and 3. Whenever she comes over to visit my parents, she gives me her kids. This wouldn't be a problem, except she doesn't visit for an evening. She'll come for a week, and for that week, I'm an unpaid nanny. If we go out to a restaurant, I have to entertain them because my mom needs to talk to my sister and my brother-in-law. You get the picture. My parents decided that since this was my last summer before I became an adult, we would be going to Disneyland to celebrate my graduation. I asked who was going, and they said it was just the 3 of us. But when we get to the airport, my sister and her family were there. Strangely enough, they were also going to Disneyland. I went into my backpack and grabbed my passport and put it in my sock. We got to the international security and I couldn't find it. We looked everywhere. I had to Uber home and I missed my flight. Oh well, I get to stay home by myself for a week in peace and quiet. My parents were very mad at me for losing my passport. The money they spent on my flight and entrance was wasted. Darn. My mother and sister have been both posting about how hard it is to be at Disneyland with 2 little ones. They both posted that I ruined the vacation by being so thoughtless. My dad says he knows why I did it and understands, but he says I should have let him know so he didn't waste the money. He said he would have gone along with my ruse. I feel bad about wasting money, but I've been to Disneyland before, and I will go again later by myself or with friends. Wow, I really wonder how much money you burned just to get out of this situation. While I understand that you don't want to be an unpaid nanny, your father is right in saying that you should have told somebody. Going to Disney is not cheap, and flights are certainly not cheap either. But also, it's hard not to acknowledge that your family was absolutely going to turn you into a nanny during that trip. From this story, it looks like your sister and your mother both counted on you watching the younger kids, and I get that you don't want any part of that, especially on a trip that's meant to celebrate you. Personally, if I was in your position, I wouldn't go out of my way to waste money. I would go out of my way to tell my parents how I feel and how I would like this trip that's meant to be celebrating my last year as a kid. I would like that trip to be kind of protected and preserved. I don't want to take care of somebody else's kid. Our second story comes from user MammothInside2431. I'm a 56-year-old male and I have 5 children. This is about 3 of them, Casey, Alex, and Tom. My daughter Casey is getting married this winter to her fiance Max, 27, who she's been together with for about 4 years. I'm covering the majority of the wedding expenses as Max's family lives in a different country, and with a different currency exchange rate, they won't be able to afford the wedding and both come to the wedding. I have no issues with it, and I just want my little girl to be happy. Last week while Casey was away, my children, Alex and Tom, came to visit with their families. And we were talking about the wedding invitations. I was surprised to hear that they hadn't received their wedding invitations, so I just thought Casey hadn't sent them out for everyone yet. Until my oldest and youngest daughters pointed out they had received their invitations with their kids and partners invited. I called my sister, who also said Casey has invited her whole family to the wedding too, and has received hers a while back. So I immediately saw red. Both Alex and Tom have husbands and have children adopted, and it seemed Casey has excluded them because of their choices. It also seemed weird since Casey has always been close to them and supported them when they came out as non-binary and gay respectively. I have called Casey and demanded an explanation. My daughter said Max and his family don't feel comfortable with couples that are not traditional and it goes against their culture, and she hopes for my understanding. I have told her if that's the case, I will not be walking her down the aisle and pull out from paying for her wedding, as she cannot exclude her family like this when they did nothing wrong, and if her future in-law's opinion is so important to her, they can pay for the wedding. As a result, Casey has called me an asshole and hanged up crying. My children are on my side. My wife is torn as she understands where Casey comes from, but agrees she shouldn't excluded her siblings like this. It really sounds like Casey wants to have her cake and eat it too. You can't expect someone to pay for your wedding if you exclude their family members. Reasons for their exclusion withstanding, it's still messed up. In my opinion, feel free to believe in whatever you want. Feel free to include or exclude people from your wedding. You have that freedom, but you don't have the freedom and the entitlement to somebody else's money. If you want to have your own wedding with your own morals, you're gonna have to pay for it out of your own pockets. The father here is being completely fair, and the fact that Casey is having a hard time accepting this goes to show that the only thing that she cares about right now is whether or not she'll have her lavish wedding, and not the fact that she had to exclude 2 of her siblings in order to have said wedding. Our third post comes from a throwaway account. I, 24 female, live on a 4-acre property that I bought for cheap from my grandma who moved to our retirement community. My nephew is turning 16 at the end of the month, and my sister asked if she could host a party here on the family property meaning at my house. I told her no, because my nephew is not allowed at my house. My nephew does not respect boundaries and treats everything like his plaything, including the boundaries of my older black lab, Davos. He constantly chases him around and tries to pick him up despite me telling him to constantly leave him alone. He has arthritis and can't be chased around and hates loud noises, which my nephew is very loud. As far as I know, he's neurotypical. My sister blew up at me, telling me I was putting my dog before my nephew and it was grandma's property that I can't dictate. I told her it was my property, I bought it, and tended to it, and pay all the bills for it. My mom called me and asked if I could just put Davos in a room during the party and suck it up for just a day. But I said no, this is his house and he's allowed to go wherever he wants and I won't shut him in a room. Now my family is divided, some of them calling me immature and selfish, and others saying I'm right, while some, including my father, refuse to get involved. Am I the asshole? Quick edit. I've gotten this question a couple of times if the other members of the family were offered the house. My Nana and I have always had a close relationship, and I've helped her tend the property for as long as I can remember, so she offered to sell it to me when she grew too old to tend to it herself. So no, other family members weren't given the opportunity to buy it, but they also weren't interested in it. It's very old and outdated, and my sister especially always talked about how much she hated the aesthetic of the house. The sole reason she wants to host it here is because my house has the most space. It's not a sentimental space for her. Man, this poster has way more patience than me, my man. No way would I put up with that stuff. The fact that the entire family showed no interest in this house, but the moment that I own it, I have to capitulate, I have to host parties, and I have to put my dog away? Nah, no way. Those moments will be my opportunity to remind everybody in the room that you weren't offered this house and that you're working off of my charity. And your sister is a special breed of entitled, bro. Just because she has a kid doesn't mean everybody has to accommodate this child and put up with this child's behavior. If I was in her situation, things would change quickly. The more that this nephew messes up my space, the more I'm going to tell you that he's just not allowed to show up. And if that means both of y'all can't show up, so be it. Our fourth story comes from this user. What's your name? It looks Polish. This started several months ago when my sister told me her cat is refusing to use the litter box ever since she's had him declawed. She was planning to surrender him when I told her I'll take him for myself. So that cat is my cat now. Yesterday, when my siblings, parents, and other relatives came over for my birthday, my aunt noticed that I don't have any litter box at my place. She assumed I wasn't taking proper care of my cat, and the others did as well. They all started lecturing and calling me a cheapskate until I told them that my cat doesn't use the litter boxes since he's declawed. I forgot to consider that they would assume I was the one who declawed him. My sister joined in on them telling me off to cover up for herself, so I told everyone she was the one who declawed the cat before giving him to me. She turned red and started shouting at me, calling me a snitch. This was ridiculous, so I shouted back that it's not my job to take the blame for her action, and we had an argument before our uncle stepped in. My mom is now saying I should have just taken the blame for it instead of escalating and having a full-blown argument in front of my guests, who were all there for me. That a shouting match in front of them was in poor taste. You know what else is in poor taste? Declawing a kitten and trying to pawn off that action on me, someone who didn't declaw a cat. Now, I do agree with your mom that shouting in front of guests is in poor taste, but I think we can give this dude a pass because his sister was in the wrong and he's doing nothing but just correcting the record. And the fact that your mom is going out of your way to tell you that you should have just taken the blame to keep things cool goes to show that somebody is a favorite child. It really begs the question if OP has been placed in similar situations before concerning his sister. How many times has he become the patsy to all of her crimes, bro? Our final story comes from user HotPlatypus9646. I, 28 female, have a son, 5 male. I was adopted and grew up as the consolation prize for my miscarriage that my mom had at 20 weeks. We would go to the fetus's grave every year. One of the earliest memories was her forcing me to give up my favorite stuffed rabbit to the grave. I grew up with her venting about how hard the miscarriage was to me, and I honestly think it was super inappropriate and made me feel like a second option to what she actually wanted. I obviously was never good enough. I recently found out that she took my son to the fetus's grave and told him about it. I told her that's an off-limits topic and he has no business hearing about her miscarriage at 5 years old. Now, some people in my life are saying that I'm an asshole for telling my mom that she couldn't tell my son about his dead aunt, but I think I'm justified in not wanting him to hear about it too. It was literally 30 years ago. Your mom is literally an insane person. Who would bring a 5-year-old child to a grave of their miscarried aunt? Good grief. That kid cannot grasp the level of tragedy that is a miscarriage, let alone just death in general. What are you doing? The fact that you brought your adopted child to that grave for multiple years just is so strange and grimy, man. I would never do that to a kid. Initially, when I came across this post, I thought the statement, "I was a consolation prize," was a little bit mean. I'm like, why would you say that about yourself? But I totally understand that that's how she felt. Her mom made it very clear to her at a very young age that she was not the first pick, and I really cannot imagine the degree of pain and trauma that does to a little kid. How corroded is this woman's brain after growing up like that? If I was in her situation, I would cut all ties with my mom at that point. It was one thing to mess up my childhood, it's another thing to mess up my child's childhood. You're not gonna do that. You're only gonna get away with that once. But what do you guys think? I want you guys to tell me all of your opinions on all of the stories that you've heard today in the comments down below. I love all that conversation. You guys are really enjoying these videos. If you're curious what game is playing in the background, it's CityState 2. It's a really great city simulator game. The first CityState, it's fantastic. There's actually clips of that on this channel. The game makes an appearance in other r/AmITheA videos, so if you haven't seen that, go ahead and take a look in the backlog. There's plenty of content for you to enjoy, and I'll catch you guys at the end. What's up, everybody? It's your boy Ailurus, aka Panda Daddy, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. And if you did, let me know in the comments down below, and leave a like if you liked the video. And if you're new to my channel, go ahead and subscribe, fam. What you doing watching videos and not subscribing? And if you're old, make sure to hit that bell so you can get these notifications every time. Go ahead and check out the community tab, because there's another content poll for next week. So if you want to put in your 2 cents, if you want to have control over the future, go ahead and take a look at that poll and vote on the video that you want to see. And as always, I gotta thank the Patreon supporters that make content like this possible. A big thank you to MyZoom, Tristan, Damspool, Tori, Sleepy Dragon, Ducky Aiden Loves Ailurus, Dr. Mambo, Power Lover, Sherry Morrison, Tron Destroy 23, The Eggs 1, Fitz Chivalry, Din Corda, Code Connor Purvis, Ailurus' Mom, S16, Squish, Rinhex, Rare Days, Mr. Bean, My Golden Experience, James Tucker, Big Boy Bailey, BMX30, Cinnamon Sticks, Scott, The Fake Musician, Buckethead, Samantha Bellhart, Admin Vanaker, Zach F, Bloody Hunter, Keely, Dundernass Hawk, Lady Laughs a Lot, Swiss Patreon user, and Noah. Thank you so much for your support. It is greatly appreciated. And if you want to help support the channel, there's 2 links in the description, one in my merch store and one in my Patreon. Both funds go directly into the channel so we can maintain what's happening here. And as always, stay zesty.